What if I told you the dream of easy money and luxury could turn into a nightmare that ends in death? She lived in a mansion with tall iron gates, her neighbors whispering about her late-night visitors. To the outside world, she was just another wealthy, middle-aged American woman enjoying the privileges of her fortune. But behind those gates, young men came and went. They were barely out of college, handsome, fit, and always between 20 and 24. To them, she was a patron, a wealthy woman who offered cash, gifts, and luxury in exchange for company. At first, she seemed almost casual. She didn't care what they did, who they saw, or where they went. But over time, her tone always changed. The freedom she gave turned into rules. The gifts became chains, and the woman who once seemed like a dream come true transformed into something darker. By the time anyone noticed the pattern, several young men were gone. Some vanished without a trace. Others were found under circumstances that never quite added up. This is the chilling true crime story of Elaine Whitmore, the wealthy widow with a military past, a childhood of brutal discipline, and a taste for young men she couldn't stop controlling, until control turned into murder. But to understand Elaine, you have to go back. Way back. Elaine wasn't born a monster. She was made. She grew up in Ohio, the only child of a Vietnam veteran father who believed children should be raised like soldiers. And Elaine wasn't spared just because she was a girl. At 8 years old, her father made her do push-ups on freezing basement floors. At 10, he dragged her out of bed at 4 a.m. by dumping ice water over her head. By 13, she could strip and reassemble a rifle in under a minute. There were no sleepovers, no birthday parties, no hugs. Her mother? Too beaten down to fight back, too quiet to protect her. Elaine grew up believing love was weakness, that the only way to survive was to be harder, tougher, and more ruthless than everyone else. And that belief would never leave her. By her 20s, Elaine followed in her father's footsteps. She enlisted in the U.S. military, serving in intelligence support roles at various bases. She wasn't just another recruit. She excelled. Colleagues said she had the sharpest eyes in the room, and a presence that intimidated even the men around her. But it wasn't just the official training that shaped her. She also spent time at Mexican paramilitary training grounds, unofficial survival programs where she learned interrogation techniques, isolation tactics, and how to break a person down without ever touching them. When she finally left the service, she walked away with a pension, powerful connections, and a reputation for being unshakable. And then life took a sharp turn. Elaine married an older oil contractor, a man who gave her the one thing she never had before: money. When he died suddenly of a heart condition, Elaine found herself both wealthy and alone. But wealth wasn't enough. Elaine needed something else, something darker. She was 47 when it began. At a local gym, she met Dylan, a 22-year-old college dropout. Tall, fit, and just a little lost. To him, she seemed like the answer to his problems. A wealthy woman offering him cash, luxury cars, even designer sneakers, all in exchange for companionship. At first, Dylan thought he had struck gold. Elaine barely cared where he went or who he saw. She told him, "I don't need to own you. Just be here when I want you." But then, slowly, the rules began. First, it was late-night questioning. Dylan would come home at 2 a.m. to find Elaine sitting in the dark, asking who he had been with. Then it was restrictions: no female friends, no nights out without permission, answer her calls immediately, and finally punishments: days of silence, withdrawal of money, emotional manipulation. Friends noticed Dylan stopped showing up at the gym. He looked thinner, quieter. He once admitted to a friend, "She makes me feel like property." 6 months later, Dylan disappeared. Elaine told neighbors he had moved west to start fresh. But his bank account was quietly drained over the next few weeks, with ATM withdrawals made near her estate. His family filed a missing persons report. But with no evidence, no body, and no crime scene, Dylan's case went cold. And Elaine? She carried on. But Dylan wasn't the last. Over the next 5 years, a disturbing pattern emerged. Marcus, 21, a model trying to break into the industry. He vanished after a fight. Julian, 23, a music student. He stopped showing up to class after moving in with Elaine. His professor recalled him saying, "She's generous but scary. Like military scary." Troy, 24, was last seen behind the wheel of Elaine's Range Rover. Before he vanished, his mother received a haunting text. "She doesn't let me leave. I think I made a mistake." But each time the cases fizzled out. Why? Because the boys were adults. Because some were ashamed to admit they had become gigolos. Because Elaine had money and lawyers, always ready to explain away their absence. The cycle repeated. Lure them in, isolate them, control them, and then erase them. Elaine's control became crueler with each victim. Neighbors heard shouting late at night. A landscaper once claimed he saw a young man sprinting half-naked across the lawn, only for Elaine to appear minutes later, calm and collected, saying he just had too much to drink. But behind those gates, something terrifying was happening. Elaine began using her military training. The basement of her mansion was reinforced and equipped with locks. Men who disobeyed her faced punishment straight from her survivalist past. Sleep deprivation, isolation, starvation. Some were forced to do endless push-ups until they collapsed. Others were locked in dark rooms for hours. Elaine told herself she was teaching them discipline. But the reality was far darker. She wasn't their lover. She was their commander. And then, the deaths began. The first undeniable crack in Elaine's facade came with Alex, a 20-year-old from Arizona. Unlike her other victims, Alex's family refused to back down when he went missing. They hired a private investigator who traced his last movements directly to Elaine's estate. Police finally obtained a warrant, and what they found was horrifying. At the far edge of her property, buried under lime, lay Alex's body. The coroner's report revealed blunt force trauma to the head, sedatives in his system, and clear signs of prolonged restraint. Elaine denied everything. She claimed Alex had been unstable, that he might have taken his own life. But investigators didn't buy it. Still, without direct witnesses and with Elaine's high-powered legal team, the case stalled. Elaine walked free, but she didn't stop. Her last known companion was Ethan, a 24-year-old bartender with big dreams. Unlike the others, Ethan was careful. He kept a journal, a secret one. In its pages, he wrote about Elaine's rules. The cameras she installed throughout the house, the way she timed his phone calls, the punishments when he resisted. And one chilling line stood out. She says, "I belong to her. If I leave, I don't leave alive." When Ethan suddenly disappeared, his sister found that journal. She turned it over to police. This time, law enforcement acted quickly. A raid on Elaine's estate revealed the truth she could no longer hide. Clothing from multiple missing men. IDs tucked away in drawers. Blood traces in the basement, despite her attempts to bleach it clean. Her mansion wasn't just a home. It was a command center of control. Elaine was finally arrested. The trial was a spectacle. The prosecution called her a predator who turned her home into a prison. They laid out the timeline. Dylan, Marcus, Julian, Troy, Alex, Ethan, and possibly others still unaccounted for. The defense tried to paint Elaine as mentally ill, a victim of her father's abuse, a woman twisted by military indoctrination. But the jury didn't see a victim. They saw a pattern, a deliberate cycle of luring, isolating, and eliminating. After weeks of testimony, Elaine Whitmore was convicted of multiple counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. To this day, families wonder how many more young men might have died under her watch. Because not every victim has been identified, and not every disappearance was connected in time. Some believe the real number could be much higher. Elaine never confessed. She never explained why she did it. But perhaps the truth lies in her past. A childhood of brutal control. A life in the military where discipline and dominance define survival. A wealthy widow who found her only sense of power in bending others to her will. So ask yourself this. What happens when someone who only understands control gets unlimited wealth and privacy? In Elaine Whitmore's case, the answer was chilling. Young men who thought they were entering a relationship of luxury and ease instead walked into a trap. One where their bodies, their freedom, and eventually, their lives were all subject to her command. For Elaine, love was never the transaction. It was always about control. And control, in her world, meant life or death.